Thank you, dear friends. It's a true honor to stand here and pick one paper that has had a true impact on my academic career. These are my conflicts of interests. I've given quite a lot of talks for different companies and so given some consultations, but I don't own any stocks in any company. So the paper that I selected is something that many of you might have guessed. The title tells it all. This is a paper from 1966, published in a journal Acta Otolaryngology that no one of you has ever heard. It was written by a Finnish virologist, Bo Berglund, and his colleagues, and the beef of this publication is here. These investigators took 10 children who had been hospitalized with bronchiolitis or a severe RSV infection. Remember, RSV was discovered 10 years before the publication of this paper, so it was a new virus and still only could be determined by virus isolation. But yes, they took 10 children, and these children also had otitis media, and of course these children were tapped because that was usual treatment that time. And someone had an idea that let's see whether there is this new virus in the middle ear fluid. That was a totally true, new way of thinking, and by surprise they could find the virus directly in the middle ear fluid in 90% of these children. Well, this didn't lead anywhere at that time, but then, because this must be a personal thing, when I started my PhD project in late 80s, we were discussing with Professor Olli Ruuskanen, my mentor, that what would be an important topic to study, and we decided that viruses in otitis media, let's see if there's something there. And the specific main question was, if we could prevent the viral infection, could we also prevent otitis media? And what happened is that at that time there was nothing else to prevent a viral respiratory infection than influenza vaccine. So we did a very straightforward study. We took daycare children, vaccinated half of them with influenza vaccine and half not. This was kind of a cluster randomized study. And it turned out that influenza vaccine was very effective in preventing influenza. It was about 80% effective. And at the same time, the influenza-associated otitis media cases came down by 83%. Of course, influenza vaccine doesn't impact any other viruses than influenza viruses, but at the same time, as you can see, the total incidence of otitis media came down by 36%. And certainly this was something that sparked my interest in the role of viruses in otitis media, which quite logically resulted in my taking my family and moving to the University of Texas for 2 years to do postdoc research there with Professor Tasni Shonmaitree, who was at that time the key figure in viruses and otitis media in the world. And together with Tasni, we went through all the evidence regarding viruses and otitis media, starting from animal studies and all clinical experience that we had. And we came out with this proposal, how otitis media in a child develops. And I'm not going to the details here because I've got only 8 minutes. Please check the publication if you're interested. But the point here is that the viral infection in the upper respiratory tract, it is the main thing that induces the sequence of events that eventually leads to otitis media when it happens. Also, while in Texas, we confirmed that not all viruses are born equal. Some viruses are more important in otitis media than others. And here, to make it short, if the child had otitis media during an RSV illness, you could find the same virus in the miliary fluid in 74% of cases, whereas in otitis media associated with some other viruses, it was only a couple of percent. But so, this was the most important thing that we thought, that this is the pattern of otitis media development. Healthy child gets a viral infection and then otitis media is a complication. And what is important here is that there are two stages where you could intervene to prevent otitis media, either by viral vaccines to prevent the viral infection, or in children with a viral infection, you could have a benefit from bacterial vaccines or antivirals. The efficacy of influenza vaccination in preventing influenza-associated otitis media is very, very well shown, and I'm not going to that at all, but just a couple of words about the new kid on the block, RSV. We've been hearing a lot about RSV also during this meeting, but the importance, as I showed you before, RSV seems to be, at least among the main respiratory viruses, it seems to be the one with the closest connection with the development of otitis media. And these are data from one prospective birth cohort study from our own group a couple of years ago. As you can see, the infants were followed throughout their first respiratory season, and one-third of them had a virologically confirmed symptomatic RSV illness. But what was important, 77% of these children who had RSV, they developed otitis media as a complication, which usually leads to antibiotic treatment in many, many countries. So is there any way that we could prevent these? Certainly we know that now we have these two strategies that we can use to prevent severe RSV infections, either by maternal vaccination or by long-acting monoclonals. Do these help in preventing otitis media? I'm afraid not. First of all, there's no evidence that this passive antibody strategy would prevent RSV infection per se, and even if it did, the duration of the protection is not long enough for otitis media, because it's been known for decades that the highest incidence of otitis media is between 6 months and 2 years of age, and that is beyond the effect of these two strategies that we have. So what would we need? We would need to have effective RSV vaccines that can be given to toddlers. Perhaps it would help if we had an effective RSV antiviral to be given very soon after the first symptoms, because we know from influenza that if you start antiviral treatment early in the course of the illness, you can prevent the complications. Luckily, when we look at what's going on, I'm not trying to read this slide, but this is my final slide to make an impression on you. There are several products. There are perhaps, you could say, numerous products that are in the pipeline so that we could have an RSV vaccine. There are also RSV antivirals that are being developed, so I hope that in a couple of years we will have tools to really prevent also RSV-associated otitis media. Thank you very much for your interest.